Welcome to Julie the Thrifty Designer. Today I'm going to show you something I have curated for a Halloween type of look. Very unique and different than anything you will have ever seen. It's called Curiosity, curated over time. So stay tuned and see what this is going to pull together like. Hi guys, welcome to Julie the Thrifty Designer. Well, I am going to start out with, please, let's all remember to pray for everyone that is in the hurricane paths that has happened, that's lost their homes from the past one and now the new one that is getting ready to hit hard. I want to lift everyone up in prayer, that they know that they are remembered and that the Lord will protect them and keep them safe and keep the damages to the minimal, that the Lord will slow down the strength of this hurricanes. I pray for all of this, Lord, in Jesus' holy name. Amen. Well, let's get on with my kind of unusual, very different Halloween look. Now, I'm hesitant to call it Halloween because I'm really not focusing on Halloween, but more of a story. My story for this is that this is a room that I have decorated in an old home, kind of like that. And it's been curated over time. I'm kind of visualizing in my mind's eye that it was an old man that lived in this house, and this room that I'm about to show you was his room that he had been studying in and looking at things. He was curious about bones and how things worked, and he collected bugs and butterflies, and he just studied herbs and just had an eclectic taste on all the things. And so I'm kind of visualizing this has been collected since like the late 1800s up to, I have a book here, 1964. That was the year I was born. So my story is this old man lived in this home for 50, 60, 70 years, 80 years. And over the years, he collected and curated this look. And then he passed away of old age. And the house became abandoned, and everything is just left where it was. His life work is now on display for all to see, kind of like a museum. So this is actually my dining room table, but I have created a very curious look in this old man's room or home. He collected everything. He at one time may have had family pictures, or he was going to put some in these, and he just never got them in there. And he loved his crows. And then he had bones. Now, of course, these are just dollar store rat bones, but he may have had them and put them together so he could study the body of a rodent. And over here he had captured a bat, and he's just been studying it, and herbs. And then he has books of research and books that he's read. And maybe he was traveled and had gone to England. And he was a Christian man. He was just curious about all the things that God had created. And here's his letters and mail that he's had to deal with through the years. And then he has a collection of rocks that he thought was fascinating. And he just kept them, and he'd just get out his stuff, and he'd just study, and he'd research. And he had his inkwell with his quill pen. And he still went out and lived and took photos and pictures, and maybe an old light bulb that he was studying. How does the light bulb work? And he just had plants and things that was sitting around that is dried, and he was just examining it, trying to figure it out. And he's just a paintbrush, and there's back there, that is a handle to an old whip, and maybe a skull. Not that he was a murderer or anything like that, but maybe he had picked up a skull from something, and he's studying it, looking at it. Maybe this is representative of an old monkey skull. I don't have that, obviously, but dollar store things. And maybe it just represents an old monkey skull that he picked up through the years, and he'd sit here and he'd study it and wonder how God created such interesting, little things such as that. And then he had his studies, and he wrote down his findings. And in this case, it's Bible verses. And he had his glasses sitting there, and he just had books and then pictures. He was a well-traveled man, and he went around the world, and he was fascinated by different various things. And here's a book of the mummies from Egypt, and he'd have his evening tea or afternoon tea, and he had these beautiful old spoons just captured in time, and the things on the table, and he'd have his candelabra, and he'd light his candles at night. And it was just fascinating. And then here is his cane that he may have used to get around. I think the dining room table is full of curiosities. What was in his mind? What did he think about all of these different objects? Just a pondering his curiosities. Let's continue to look around the room. Now, right next to the table, he's got a desk. And in that desk, he's got all his paperwork just stored away. But on top, he just has a candle. And he just had a flower arrangement that just died back through the years and just stayed as dried. And he just threw in one of his collections of his ravens that he loved so much. And here's a bottle that he just threw in feathers so that he may collect them in time. And he had his candles to light, and more of his crows, and his lantern that he would light. And on it, he still had his crows. And then the vines, they look like they're growing up through a crack in the house. It's such an old home. And they kind of grown up and dried and put in place. And just a little nod to Halloween right there. Just put in the little bats and Happy Halloween, but it's subtle. It's not in your face. And then these are paper plates from the Dollar Tree. And they just kind of went with the theme, so that's why I put it in here. They got the books, the dark academia look with a skull, which I'm not really wanting to focus on skulls and death necessarily, just intrigue and curiosity. But the plates work for this look, and in an expensive way. Just very fascinating. Just to see how the the mind of this man worked. Then across from the table, I have my buffet. And I have my antique radio. And this truly is an authentic old one. That thing weighs a ton. So in the 30s, he had his radio. And he probably still listened to it till the day he died. And he had just this wonderful statue of the bust of David. And he had more problems and trees growing that died. And again, I just put in a few more of those paper plates just to add to the ambiance. And on his trees, he's got the crows and blackbirds and ravens. And maybe we can say, maybe he had them taxidermied. And these are all his taxidermied little pets. And then candle on the wall. And then, I don't even know where I got this. I've had it for years. But it's a Happy Harvest raven. And maybe we can say the man loved Edgar Allan Poe. And that's what gave him the love for his crows and blackbirds. And so he collected and accumulated through the years. And on this, it's just one of my old frames that I had when I was doing my old world look with my Italian Tuscan style. And I just put in an old newspaper, which is what I had around the house. Most all of this is stuff I've just had around the house. And it's tore up in the corner, but it fit in there, and I put this plaque over it. And it just gives it like he had been saving that newspaper. There was something in it that caught his eye. And he's got it stacked on lots and lots of books. And then here, this book got ruined, I'm sorry to say, but it's still salvageable a little bit. This is like 1870 or something like that is the copyright on this book. It is really neat to look through it and read. So in my story, the man just set it there from back in the late 1800s. He was studying that book. And then he has a spider that he's collected and put in there as his studies, and a piece of petrified wood that he found fascinating and kept looking at it. And just maybe, it's just a Dollar Tree thing, but it represents a taxidermy little owl, maybe. And then he just had some old handles that he just sat there because he was going to do something with them, build something with the house or something. He just never did, and they just got set there, and there they sat. And then in the 70s, 80s, when Polaroids were the thing, a picture was taken. Now, this is actually my mother when she was in the nursing home. She had Alzheimer's, and they came in and took a picture of her. And so this is a way for me to display my mother, but in a very creative way. So the old man's story, this was somebody he knew and loved. And we can just say it was a snapshot that was taken just not long before he passed away. And it got stuck right there, of maybe his wife or something in their old age. And he just has collected many things, and he was an herbologist, and there's some different herbs that he hung on to. And then here's an old horn that it used to have the bulb that you squeezed and it would honk. Well, during my move and how it was packed away and not taken care of, it got crumbled and it fell apart. I am so sick about it because the whole thing was there. It was stiff, and we didn't want to push the leather any because we was afraid it would crumble. Well, in the move from my old house to here, it did crumble it, and it's just gone. But I still have the old brass horn, and that is a very old horn that was on an old like Model T, so it's probably close to early 1900s, somewhere around there. And then maybe he did have a skull. Maybe this is another type of ape, or maybe he did get his hands on a human skull, but it's smaller than humans, so these are like ape skulls or something. And he's been studying them through the years. And then he had just an interesting thing that he found fascinating, and these all represent some weird things in his life. And he's just looked at them, and just a book in another language. Don't know what it says. It looks like it might be German. And he's just studying different languages. And there's some butterfly wings that he hung on to, and some more just herbs that he's been studying. And then he had his binoculars so that he could look out and see what's going on in the world. And he had a fish, and he had it taxidermied, or maybe he carved this one himself. And he put it out, and then he collects his butterflies. And here's a big white butterfly that's unique to the world. And then in his cloche here, maybe these are some flowers of some kind that someone had given him or his wife, and they stuck it in there, and he stuck a feather with them, and he just put it in there, and it preserved it to this point. And maybe this was just a beautiful brooch that his wife had, and they just stuck it there, and she was his beautiful queen, and maybe she wore it when they got married or something, and it just got placed on there. It just like living life. They just set it there, and there it just ended up living for their whole time. And then another candle that he could light in the evenings. And he just had signs, amazing grace. And he collected newspaper prints and had pictures put on them in very interesting ways. And had his candles that he could light. And maybe he collected butterflies. And he had them curated onto his wall. And I was going to put a picture in there, but I have not been able to. I wanted to find a picture of Edgar Allan Poe. And, well, it's just not happening for me. So pretend there's either a family picture of someone old in the olden days, or Edgar Allan Poe because he liked him so much. I don't know. And then, of course, the lamp, the gas lamp here, that kerosene lamp that they just used all the time. And, well, they probably had electricity at this point when he died, but it just sat there, and there it always was. And he put another one of his taxidermied little crows. And he had his owl. This is the owl that maybe they used in the garden, and he just brought it in because he loved his owls so much. And maybe in his travels, he came across this amazing architectural piece that he picked up for pennies on the dollar and brought it home. And then he just has his baking soda or whatever, and it's just sitting there, and his old watch just sitting there through time. And just a nod to Halloween, just a little bit, I put that in. And then there is another one of his monkey skulls or something that he had mounted. And then down below, he had the bones of his precious dog. And he's just put them together, and he's studied and looked at how the old boy ticked on the inside. The old man just had an interesting, curated life. Over time, he presented this room in such a magical but different and unique way of living. And now we'll look over here on this side, and he has kind of like a desk. He's got his typewriter in there and typing up things, his notes, and another one of his wonderful crows that he loved so much, or ravens, and another animal skull that he would so study, and a lamp to light his way. Such a fascinating life this old man had. And then down below, just a vase and a bust of Caesar, candle, and old dried flowers that was just left there through the years. And everything's dusty and dirty, as you can see. A lot of this is actually the construction dust from working around my house here, and I chose on purpose, y'all, to leave it dusty and dirty because I thought it really did go with the theme. Because I started to clean it because, you know, I'm busy working around here, and with all that I have to do, I've just not taken the time to clean because constantly I'm doing drywall, I'm fixing this, I'm building that, and all kinds of stuff around the house. So I took a few minutes off to actually create something fun instead of just constantly building. And so the dust is accumulated, and I realized it just added to the ambiance. So this time I chose to leave the dust on purpose. I did it on purpose. I mean, if you look down the hall, yep, there's our construction stuff, you know. But for the story, back to the story. He may have absolutely loved Marilyn Monroe. Just collected all kinds of fun and interesting things curated over time. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed my little story of my curiosities here. Something unique and something different. It's not the same old that you would expect to see at Halloween. I'm really not caring to celebrate Halloween, but to a nod for it. For some of you that love it, maybe you would like something like this, a dark academia story that you can build on and create an interesting look for your home. I mean, even if you don't do Halloween, you could always leave out things that even represented Halloween at all and just made it a curious room. Just dark academia feel because there's books galore. I mean, we're just, books everywhere. Things that he looked at. And old cards. And I don't know. I think it's a fun story. Why not? So I hope this inspired all of you to enjoy being creative in ways that out of the box. Curiosity collected over time, curated over time. Even though it took me a couple of days just to throw this together for the look, but hey, can you just see some old man lived to be about 75, 80 years old, and this is his life collections, frozen in time. Well, guys, thanks for watching. Y'all take care and God bless and happy decorating. Have a great time with your life. Explore new avenues, new things to do. For sure. Let your light shine before men, that is for sure. But you can still be creative. and do things out of the ordinary. And you can be very unique in how you do things. Have a lot of fun with it. And I'm also going to remind y'all, please remember to pray earnestly, deeply for all the people that are being affected by the horrible hurricanes that are coming and have already hit. Just help these people. And if you can, and if you can't, just lift them up in prayer. So I'm going to end here now and say thank you guys for watching. You take care and God bless, and have a wonderful holiday seasons coming up, and think outside of the box. Have fun decorating. Take care now. Mwah! Till we meet again.